My wife's ex-husband didn't know I found the group chat where he coached my stepdaughter to accuse me of abuse. I was sitting at my desk, working from home, when my stepdaughter Iris's iPad started buzzing with notifications on the kitchen counter, where she had left it charging. She was at school, and my wife Amanda was at her dental practice, so the house was quiet, except for the relentless pinging. After the 15th notification in 2 minutes, I walked over to silence it, worried something was wrong. The screen showed a group chat called Team Iris, with her father Gregory, her aunt Diane, and someone named Coach Chas Truth. The preview of the latest message from Gregory made my blood stop moving. Remember, stick to the script we practiced. When CPS interviews you tomorrow, tell them he grabbed your arm hard enough to leave marks. I'll send the makeup tutorial again so you can make it look real. I stood frozen in my kitchen, holding my 13-year-old stepdaughter's iPad, staring at evidence that my wife's ex-husband was coaching Iris to fabricate abuse allegations against me. My hands shook as I opened the chat fully. It went back 3 months, hundreds of messages detailing an elaborate conspiracy to destroy my marriage to Amanda and get me arrested for child abuse. Gregory had created this group the week after Amanda and I got engaged 2 years ago, but the messages had intensified dramatically in recent months. I scrolled to the beginning, my stomach churning with each revelation. The earliest messages were Gregory testing the waters with Iris, asking how she felt about me, whether I ever made her uncomfortable, planting seeds of resentment. Iris's responses were initially neutral, even positive. She wrote that I was nice and made her mom happy. Gregory's replies were manipulative masterclasses, slowly turning every positive into a negative. He's probably just pretending to be nice. Most men who date single mothers have ulterior motives. You need to be careful around him and tell me if he ever does anything that makes you feel unsafe, even small things. Over weeks, Gregory escalated his coaching. He sent Iris articles about step-parent abuse, videos of children testifying against abusive guardians, and statistics designed to make her paranoid about my intentions. The Aunt Diane chimed in regularly, reinforcing Gregory's narrative and sharing her own invented stories about stepdads she claimed had abused children she knew. The Coach Truth account was the most disturbing. The profile picture was a stock photo of a professional-looking woman, and her messages provided detailed instructions on how to fabricate convincing abuse allegations. She taught Iris which phrases CPS workers would find most credible, how to cry on command, which physical marks were easy to fake with makeup, and how to build a timeline of abuse that would be difficult to disprove. I realized with growing horror that Gregory had either hired someone with knowledge of the child protective system or was using a fake account to role-play as an expert himself. The messages from the past month were the most damning. Gregory had convinced Iris to start keeping a journal documenting fake incidents of abuse. He dictated specific entries for her to write, complete with dates, times, and detailed descriptions of things that never happened. November 3rd, write that he yelled at you for forgetting to do your homework and called you stupid. November 7th, write that he refused to let you eat dinner because you talked back to your mother. November 12th, write that he grabbed your wrist hard when you tried to leave the room during an argument and you had bruises for 3 days. I remembered each of those dates clearly. November 3rd, I had helped Iris with her math homework for 2 hours. November 7th, I made her favorite pasta dish and we all watched a movie together. November 12th, I was not even home that evening because I was at a work conference in Boston. But Iris had written all these incidents in her journal exactly as Gregory instructed, creating a false record of systematic abuse. The plan's endgame was laid out in messages from last week. Gregory explained that once Iris had sufficient documentation in her journal, she would confide in her school counselor about the abuse. The counselor would be mandated to report it to Child Protective Services. CPS would investigate, find the detailed journal entries, interview Iris, who would repeat the scripted allegations, and I would be removed from the home. Amanda would be forced to choose between her daughter and her husband. Gregory was confident Amanda would choose Iris, ending our marriage. He even had a backup plan written out in the chat. If Amanda somehow stayed with me despite the allegations, he would file for emergency custody of Iris, claiming Amanda was failing to protect her daughter from an abuser. The family court would almost certainly side with him given the CPS investigation and Iris's testimony. Either way, Gregory would successfully destroy my relationship with Amanda and reclaim some control over his ex-wife's life. I screenshot every single message in that group chat. It took me 40 minutes to capture all the evidence, my hands cramping from holding the iPad. I sent the screenshots to my personal email and backed them up to 3 different cloud services. Then I texted my best friend Owen, who was a criminal defense attorney. "Emergency. Need to talk immediately. Someone is framing me for child abuse." Owen called within 30 seconds. I explained everything while he listened in increasingly shocked silence. When I finished, Owen said, "Do not delete anything from that iPad. Do not confront anyone yet. Do not tell Amanda before we figure out the legal implications. What you found is evidence of conspiracy to make false allegations, which is a serious crime. But if you handle this wrong, you could still end up under investigation even with proof of the conspiracy. We need to be strategic." His words terrified me because they confirmed how real the danger was. Even with evidence of Gregory's plot, I could still lose everything if I made a wrong move. Owen told me to document the iPad's location and condition, take photos of it sitting on the counter where Iris left it, and under no circumstances should I delete or modify anything in the group chat. He said that, when Iris came home from school, I should act completely normal and not mention the iPad or the chat. We needed to let Gregory's plan continue just long enough to gather additional evidence of conspiracy, while preventing any actual false report from being made. Owen would file emergency motions first thing in the morning to get ahead of whatever Gregory had planned. He would also contact a family law attorney he trusted to prepare for the custody battle that would inevitably follow. I felt sick at the idea of pretending everything was fine while knowing what Iris and Gregory were planning, but Owen insisted it was the only way to protect myself legally. If I confronted them now, they could delete the evidence and claim I fabricated the screenshots. We needed everything preserved in its original form. Amanda came home at 6 that evening, exhausted from a long day of patient appointments. I kissed her hello and asked about her day, acting normal even though I felt hollow inside. Iris arrived 20 minutes later from soccer practice, grabbed her iPad from the counter, and went upstairs to her room without much interaction. I sat through dinner making conversation, laughing at Iris's story about her science teacher, helping Amanda plan her mother's birthday party for next weekend. All the while, I knew that upstairs, Iris was probably messaging with her father, reviewing tomorrow's script, preparing to destroy my life with lies. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. This child I had driven to soccer practice hundreds of times, whose homework I had helped with, who I had taught to ride a bike last summer, was actively conspiring to have me arrested. And she was doing it because her father had spent 2 years methodically manipulating her into a weapon. That night, after Amanda fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling and thinking about how I had ended up here. I met Amanda 3 years ago at a charity fundraiser where I was volunteering. She was recently divorced, funny, brilliant, and still healing from a marriage that had left her damaged. Gregory had been controlling and emotionally abusive throughout their 10-year marriage. He monitored her phone, her finances, her friendships. He belittled her career and told her she was lucky he stayed with her despite her flaws. When Amanda finally found the courage to leave him, Gregory made the divorce as painful as possible. He fought her on every asset, dragged out proceedings for 18 months, and used Iris as leverage whenever possible. But eventually the divorce was finalized, and Amanda began rebuilding her life. When we started dating, she was cautious about introducing me to Iris. She wanted to be certain our relationship was serious before bringing a new man into her daughter's life. We dated for a year before I even met Iris, and another 6 months before I started spending significant time with her. Iris had seemed to accept me initially. She was polite, occasionally warm, and never expressed discomfort with my presence. When Amanda and I got engaged, Iris even said she was happy for us during a family dinner. I thought we were building something real. I attended her school events, helped her with projects, took her to movies and bookstores, tried to be a positive presence without overstepping the boundaries of my role as her stepfather. I never tried to replace Gregory. I never demanded she call me dad or treat me as anything other than her mother's husband who cared about her well-being. But apparently, Gregory had been working the entire time to undermine everything, poisoning Iris's perception of me message by message, lie by lie. The group chat made it clear that Iris had not come to hate me organically. Her father had manufactured that hatred through systematic manipulation and planted it in her mind until she could no longer distinguish his lies from her own memories. Owen called me at 7 the next morning before Amanda woke up. He had already filed emergency motions with the family court requesting an immediate hearing regarding custodial interference and conspiracy to fabricate abuse allegations. He attached some of the screenshots as evidence to demonstrate the urgency. The judge's clerk called him back within an hour, which Owen said was almost unprecedented, and scheduled an emergency hearing for that afternoon. Owen said the judge had reviewed the evidence and was concerned enough to fast-track the matter. He told me to bring the iPad to court in its current condition and to be prepared to explain how I discovered the group chat. He also warned me that once these motions were filed, Gregory would be notified and all hell would break loose. I needed to tell Amanda immediately before she heard about it from Gregory or the court. This was the conversation I had been dreading since yesterday afternoon. I woke Amanda and asked her to come downstairs because we needed to talk about something serious. She followed me to the kitchen, confused and worried by my tone. I handed her my phone showing the screenshots of the group chat and watched her face transform as she read. She went pale, then red, her hands starting to shake. She scrolled through message after message, her breathing becoming rapid and shallow. When she finally looked up at me, tears were streaming down her face. This cannot be real. Gregory would not do this. Iris would not lie about something this serious. But her voice was uncertain because she was reading their own words, undeniable evidence of the conspiracy. I explained how I found the chat, what Owen advised, the emergency hearing scheduled for this afternoon. Amanda sat down heavily in a kitchen chair and put her head in her hands. He is using our daughter to destroy you. He is teaching her to lie. What has he done to her? The anguish in her voice was unbearable because she was realizing that her ex-husband had weaponized their child. Iris came downstairs 20 minutes later and found both of us sitting in the kitchen with her iPad on the table between us. She looked at the device, then at our faces, and her expression shifted from confusion to fear. What is going on? Her voice was small. Amanda picked up the iPad and opened the group chat. Explain this to me. Explain why you and your father have been planning to accuse someone who has been nothing but kind to you of abusing you. Explain why you wrote lies in your journal. Explain why you were going to talk to your school counselor today and destroy an innocent person's life. Iris's face crumpled. She tried to speak several times, but no words came out. Finally, she whispered, Dad said you were too blind to see what was really happening. He said someone needed to protect me. He said if I did not help him, you would choose your husband over me and I would lose you forever. Amanda started crying harder. So you were going to send my husband to jail? You were going to ruin his life with lies? How could you think that was protecting anyone? Iris backed away from the table. Dad said it was the only way. He said you made a mistake marrying him and I needed to fix it before something bad really happened. He said eventually you would thank me for saving you. The words tumbled out desperate and confused. I could see that Iris genuinely believed some of what she was saying. Gregory had twisted her reality so thoroughly that she could not separate his manipulation from her own thoughts. Amanda stood up and walked toward Iris. Your father is using you. He is teaching you to lie and manipulate because he cannot accept that I left him and built a new life. He has put you in a position where you could face serious legal consequences for conspiracy and false reporting. Do you understand that? Iris shook her head frantically. Dad said nobody would blame me because I am a child. He said the system always believes kids. He said I would be protected. I spoke for the first time. Your father lied to you about that too. What you were planning is a crime. And now there is evidence of the conspiracy. You could both face consequences. Iris ran upstairs, sobbing. Amanda looked at me with devastation in her eyes. We need to get her into therapy immediately. He has brainwashed her. She needs help. I agreed, but pointed out we also needed to deal with the legal crisis first. The emergency hearing was in 5 hours. Owen arrived at our house at noon to prep us for court. He reviewed all the evidence again and prepared questions we might face from the judge. He explained that Gregory's attorney would likely try to claim the screenshots were fabricated or taken out of context. But the fact that everything was still on Iris's iPad in its original form would make that defense nearly impossible. Owen had also subpoenaed the messaging service provider to obtain certified records of the group chat directly from their servers, which would provide additional authentication. He warned us that the hearing would be emotionally brutal, but necessary. We needed to stop Gregory's plot before Iris actually made the false report to her school counselor, which, according to the group chat, was supposed to happen today. The courthouse was cold and institutional. Gregory arrived with his attorney looking smug until he saw Owen and realized we had legal representation. His expression shifted to confusion, then alarm when the bailiff handed him copies of our emergency motions and evidence exhibits. I watched him read the screenshots of his own messages, watched the blood drain from his face as he understood what we had discovered. His attorney, a sharp-faced woman named Carolyn Burke, pulled him into a conference room for an emergency consultation. They emerged 15 minutes later with Gregory looking shaken and Burke looking grim. The judge, Honorable Denise Whitmore, called us into her chambers rather than holding the hearing in open court. She was a stern woman in her 60s who had reportedly seen every custody manipulation tactic imaginable during her career. She did not waste time with pleasantries. I have reviewed the evidence submitted with the emergency motion. Mr. Gregory Dawson, is this your account in this group chat? She pointed to the exhibits showing his messages. Gregory's attorney started to answer, but Judge Whitmore cut her off. I asked Mr. Dawson directly, is this your account? Gregory swallowed hard and said, yes, but those messages are being taken out of context. I was trying to help my daughter document real concerns she had been expressing to me privately. I never told her to lie. I was helping her find words to describe experiences she was struggling to articulate. His voice was defensive and rehearsed. Judge Whitmore picked up one of the exhibits and read aloud. November 12th. Write that he grabbed your wrist hard when you tried to leave the room during an argument, and you had bruises for 3 days. Mr. Dawson, the stepfather has provided evidence that he was in Boston on November 12th at a documented work conference. He has hotel receipts, airline records, and witness testimony from colleagues. So please explain how you were helping your daughter articulate a real experience that occurred when her stepfather was not even present. Gregory opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Burke jumped in. Your Honor, we would need time to review the dates and verify the alleged alibi before responding to these specific accusations. Judge Whitmore's expression hardened. Ms. Burke, your client kept a detailed record of his conspiracy in writing. He coached a child to fabricate abuse allegations, taught her how to create false physical evidence, and coordinated with others to build a fraudulent case. The evidence is not ambiguous. This is not a he said, she said situation. I am looking at your client's own words instructing a 13-year-old girl to lie to mandatory reporters and child protective services. She turned back to Gregory. Do you understand that what you have done constitutes conspiracy to file a false report, witness tampering, and custodial interference? These are criminal matters, not just family court issues. I am obligated to refer this case to the district attorney's office for potential prosecution. Gregory's face went white. Burke tried to argue that her client's intentions were to protect his daughter, that perhaps he had been overzealous, but not criminal. Judge Whitmore was unmoved. Coaching a child to fabricate abuse allegations is not overzealous parenting. It is criminal conduct that endangers an innocent person and wastes investigative resources meant for actual victims. The judge turned to Amanda. Ms. Reeves, I need to ask you some difficult questions about your daughter's well-being and your ex-husband's access to her. Based on this evidence, I am deeply concerned about the psychological manipulation Iris has been subjected to. I need to know if you are able to protect her from further manipulation by her father while this matter is investigated. Amanda's voice was steady, despite her tears. I am taking Iris to a therapist who specializes in parental alienation starting tomorrow. I have already scheduled an emergency appointment, and I will support whatever custody modifications the court deems necessary to protect my daughter from further manipulation by her father. What Gregory has done is abuse, even if he cannot see it. He has traumatized our child by teaching her to lie and weaponizing her against an innocent person. I will not allow it to continue. Judge Whitmore nodded approvingly. I am going to issue a temporary order modifying custody. Gregory Dawson, Your parenting time is suspended pending a full custody evaluation. You will have no contact with Iris except through a supervised visitation center, and those visits will not begin until you have completed a court-ordered psychological evaluation. Gregory exploded. You cannot take my daughter from me. I am her father. I have rights. This is because she chose him over her own family, and now she is trying to erase me from my daughter's life. Judge Whitmore's voice was ice. Mr. Dawson, you attempted to have your daughter's stepfather falsely arrested and prosecuted for child abuse. You taught her that lying to authorities is acceptable if it serves your purposes. You subjected her to months of psychological manipulation. Your parenting time is suspended because you have proven yourself to be a danger to your child's emotional and psychological well-being. If you continue this outburst, I will hold you in contempt. Gregory sat down abruptly, breathing hard. Burke put a hand on his arm, silencing him. The judge continued. Additionally, I am ordering that Iris's electronic devices be forensically examined by a court-appointed expert to preserve all evidence from the group chat and any related communications. The district attorney's office will receive a full copy of this evidence. Mr. Dawson, you should consult with a criminal defense attorney because you will likely be facing charges. The hearing ended with temporary orders in place that felt surreal. Gregory was effectively barred from having any private contact with Iris. Amanda was granted sole legal custody temporarily. I was cleared of any suspicion since the conspiracy was documented. We left the courthouse in a daze. Owen pulled me aside before we reached our car. This is not over. Gregory will appeal the custody order. He will claim the judge was biased, and if criminal charges are filed, he will fight them aggressively. You need to be prepared for a long battle. I thanked him for everything he had done to protect me and asked what our next steps should be. Owen said to focus on Iris getting therapy and to document any attempts Gregory made to contact her outside the supervised framework. He also warned that Gregory's family would likely rally around him and we should expect hostile confrontations. Sure enough, Diane called Amanda's phone within an hour of leaving court, screaming about how we had destroyed Gregory's life and poisoned Iris against her father. Amanda blocked the number. The therapist we took Iris to, Dr. Sharon Feldman, specialized in cases of parental manipulation and alienation. She spent 2 hours with Iris in the initial session, then met with Amanda and me afterward. Her assessment was blunt. Iris has been subjected to systematic psychological manipulation consistent with alienation tactics. Her father exploited her natural loyalty and fear of abandonment to recruit her into a conspiracy against her stepfather. She is experiencing significant cognitive dissonance now that the manipulation has been exposed. Part of her still believes her father's narrative, while another part is beginning to recognize she was used. This will require intensive therapy to untangle. She needs to understand that what happened was not her fault, that she was victimized by her father's manipulation, but also that she must take responsibility for her choices going forward. Dr. Feldman recommended twice-weekly sessions initially, possibly more if Iris showed signs of acute distress. She also suggested family therapy sessions once Iris had processed some of her individual trauma. The first week after the hearing was chaos. The district attorney's office opened an investigation into Gregory's conduct. A detective interviewed all of us, reviewed the group chat evidence, and confirmed they were building a case. Gregory hired a prominent criminal defense attorney and began a public relations campaign claiming he was being persecuted for trying to protect his daughter. He gave interviews to local news outlets portraying himself as a concerned father being railroaded by a vindictive ex-wife and her abusive new husband. The stories were absurd to anyone who had seen the evidence, but they poisoned public opinion in some circles. Amanda's dental practice received negative reviews from people who believed Gregory's version of events. I had colleagues at work ask uncomfortable questions about why I was involved in a child abuse investigation. The damage to our reputations was real even though the abuse allegations themselves had been proven false. This was exactly what Gregory wanted, to create chaos and pain in our lives as punishment for Amanda leaving him. Iris struggled intensely during therapy. She had nightmares and panic attacks. She alternated between defending her father and expressing rage at him for putting her in this position. Dr. Feldman explained that Iris was grieving the loss of the father she thought she had, the one who loved her unconditionally, and confronting the reality that her father had used her as a tool for revenge. During one session that Amanda and I attended together with Iris, Dr. Feldman asked Iris directly why she had gone along with her father's plan. Iris said through tears, "I thought I was helping. Dad made it seem like I was protecting Mom from a bad person. He said if I loved Mom, I would do this. I did not want to lose either of them, so I did what Dad asked. I thought it was the right thing." Her words broke my heart because they revealed how thoroughly Gregory had manipulated her sense of morality. He had convinced her that destroying an innocent person was an act of love and protection. 3 months after the emergency hearing, the district attorney filed formal criminal charges against Gregory. Count 1 was conspiracy to file a false report. Count 2 was witness tampering involving a minor. Count 3 was custodial interference. His bail was set at $50,000, which he posted immediately. The arraignment was covered by local media, and Gregory played the victim role perfectly, telling reporters that he was being prosecuted for loving his daughter too much. But the evidence against him was overwhelming. The group chat messages were authenticated by the service provider. Iris had given a statement to investigators admitting her father coached her to lie. The journal entries Gregory dictated were recovered and compared to his messages showing perfect correlation. Multiple legal experts quoted in news articles said the prosecution had a strong case. Gregory's attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the DA's office refused to offer anything less than jail time. They said teaching a child to fabricate abuse allegations was too serious to let someone walk away with just probation. The custody evaluation ordered by Judge Whitmore took 4 months and involved interviews with everyone in both households, psychological testing, and review of all evidence from the conspiracy. The evaluator's report was damning for Gregory. It concluded that he had engaged in a calculated campaign of parental alienation, that he posed a psychological danger to Iris, and that reunification therapy would be necessary before any unsupervised contact could be considered safe. The report recommended that Amanda retain sole legal and physical custody, that Gregory's contact remain supervised indefinitely, and that he be required to complete a batterer's intervention program focused on coercive control and manipulation. When Judge Whitmore adopted these recommendations as a final custody order, Gregory's attorney filed an immediate appeal. But the appellate court upheld every aspect of the order 6 months later, finding that the trial judge had acted appropriately given the extraordinary evidence of Gregory's misconduct. Gregory's criminal trial began 18 months after I found the group chat. The prosecution's case was methodical and devastating. They called me to testify about discovering the messages and provided the jury with printed copies of the entire group chat. They called Amanda to testify about Gregory's history of control and manipulation during their marriage. They called Iris, who was now 15, to testify about how her father had coached her to lie. Iris's testimony was the most powerful moment of the trial. She sat in the witness box wearing a simple blue dress, looking small and scared, and answered the prosecutor's questions with quiet honesty. "My father told me that if I loved him and my mom, I would help him get rid of my stepdad. He said it was the only way to protect our family. He gave me scripts to memorize and practiced with me until I could repeat them without thinking. He taught me how to fake bruises and cry on demand. He said I was brave for being willing to do this." The defense attorney tried to cross-examine Iris gently, suggesting that maybe she had misunderstood her father's intentions, that maybe he truly believed I was dangerous and was trying to protect her. Iris shook her head firmly. "My father knew my stepdad was not dangerous. He made up stories and told me to write them in my journal even though they never happened. He picked dates when my stepdad was out of town specifically because he knew there would be no way to prove the stories were false if my stepdad could not remember where he was on random dates. But he did not think anyone would check if my stepdad was even home those days. He just wanted to destroy my stepdad and hurt my mom for leaving him." The jury's faces showed their disgust. This was not a misunderstanding or an overprotective father. This was calculated cruelty using a child as a weapon. The defense rested without calling Gregory to testify, probably because his attorneys knew he would be eviscerated on cross-examination. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours, guilty on all 3 counts. Gregory showed no emotion when the verdict was read, just stared straight ahead with his jaw clenched. Sentencing was scheduled for 6 weeks later. During that time, Multiple victims' advocates and children's rights organizations submitted statements to the judge arguing for significant prison time. They said that false abuse allegations endanger real victims by creating skepticism and wasting investigative resources. They said that teaching children to lie to authorities is a form of child abuse itself. When the sentencing hearing arrived, Judge Whitmore allowed Amanda and me to give victim impact statements before imposing sentence. Amanda spoke first, her voice shaking but determined. Gregory destroyed our daughter's innocence and sense of morality. He taught her that lying and manipulation are acceptable tools to get what you want. He put her in a position where she will carry guilt and shame for the rest of her life. That is not love. That is abuse. I spoke next, focusing on the impact of living under the threat of false accusations. For months, I knew that at any moment, my life could be destroyed by lies. I knew that a 13-year-old child was being coached to send me to jail for crimes I did not commit. I could not confront the conspiracy without risking my own safety. I had to watch someone I cared about be weaponized against me and pretend everything was normal. The psychological torture of that experience will stay with me forever. And it all happened because one man could not accept that his ex-wife had moved on and built a new life. Gregory tried to destroy me, not because I did anything wrong, but because I existed as evidence that Amanda was happy without him. Judge Whitmore listened to both statements carefully. Then she addressed Gregory directly. Mr. Dawson, you orchestrated a conspiracy to have an innocent man arrested and prosecuted for child abuse. You recruited your daughter into this conspiracy, teaching her to lie and manipulate. You created false evidence and coached a child on how to deceive mandatory reporters and investigators. Your conduct was calculated, sustained over months, and would have succeeded in destroying multiple lives if not for accidental discovery of your communications. Judge Whitmore continued in a voice heavy with judgment. The court has reviewed the evidence exhaustively. There is no question about your guilt or your intent. You knew exactly what you were doing. The question before me is what sentence adequately reflects the severity of your crimes and protects the community from future misconduct. I have considered the sentencing recommendations from both sides. I have reviewed cases involving similar conduct, and I have concluded that a significant period of incarceration is necessary and appropriate. She sentenced Gregory to 5 years in state prison on the conspiracy charge, 3 years on the witness tampering charge, and 2 years on the custodial interference charge, with the sentences to run consecutively. 10 years total. Gregory would serve at least 85% of that time before being eligible for parole. His face finally showed emotion when he heard the sentence, a flash of panic quickly suppressed. His attorney immediately filed notice of appeal. But everyone in the courtroom knew the sentence would be upheld. The evidence was too strong and the conduct too egregious for any appellate court to find fault with the trial judge's reasoning. Iris's healing was slower than any legal process. She continued therapy twice a week throughout Gregory's trial and for years afterward. Dr. Feldman said that Iris was working through complex trauma related to betrayal by a parent, guilt over her participation in the conspiracy, and fear that she had permanently damaged her relationship with me. During family therapy sessions, Iris apologized to me repeatedly, crying and asking how I could ever forgive her. I told her the truth that I had been rehearsing with Dr. Feldman. You were manipulated by someone who was supposed to protect you. Your father exploited your love for your mother and your loyalty to him. What happened was not your fault. But going forward, you have to choose the kind of person you want to be. You have to decide whether to learn from this experience or let it define you. I forgive you because I understand you were victimized. Now you need to forgive yourself and do the work to become someone who values truth and integrity. Iris nodded through her tears and promised she would try. 3 years after I found the group chat, Iris asked if she could talk to me privately. We sat in the backyard on a Sunday afternoon while Amanda was visiting her mother. Iris was 16 now, preparing for her junior year of high school, and looked more mature than the 13-year-old who had been coached to destroy my life. She said, "I have been thinking about writing you a letter for my therapy homework. Dr. Feldman wants me to express things I have never fully articulated. But I wanted to tell you in person first. I am sorry for what I did. I know I have said that before, but I do not think I understood what it meant until recently. I read about a man who was falsely accused of abuse and spent years in prison before being exonerated. His whole life was destroyed. That could have been you. I could have sent you to prison. I could have ruined your career. I could have destroyed your reputation. And I was willing to do all of that because my father convinced me it was necessary. I hate that I was capable of that. I let Iris finish before responding. What your father did to you was abuse. He abused you by manipulating your perception of reality and using you as a weapon. You were a child. You trusted him because children are supposed to trust their parents. The fact that you can recognize now how wrong it was means you have grown. It means the therapy is working. It means you are becoming someone who values truth. Iris wiped her eyes. Do you trust me now? Because I do not know if I would trust me if I were you. How do you know I will not be manipulated again? How do you know I am safe to be around? Her vulnerability in that moment was profound. I told her honestly. Trust is rebuilt through consistent actions over time. You have been doing the work for 3 years now. You have been honest in therapy. You have taken responsibility for your choices. You have shown remorse not just through words, but through changed behavior. So yes, I trust you. Not because I am naive, but because I have watched you do the hard work of becoming a better person. Amanda and I celebrated our 5th wedding anniversary last month. Iris, now 17, helped plan a surprise dinner party and gave a toast that made everyone cry. She said, 5 years ago, I was a different person. I was angry and confused and being used by someone I loved. My mom and my stepdad could have given up on me. They could have sent me away or written me off as too damaged. Instead, they fought for me. They got me help. They showed me what real love looks like, the kind that does not manipulate or control, the kind that holds you accountable while still supporting you. I am grateful every day that they did not give up. She looked directly at me. You had every reason to hate me. I tried to destroy your life, but you chose to see me as a victim instead of an enemy. You chose to help me heal instead of seeking revenge. That is the kind of person I want to be. Thank you for showing me that is possible. Gregory was released on parole last year after serving 8.5 years. The conditions of his parole include no contact with Iris unless she initiates it as an adult, mandatory, continued therapy focused on his controlling behavior, and regular check-ins with a parole officer. Iris has chosen not to reach out to him. Dr. Feldman said that is a healthy boundary, that Iris does not owe her father a relationship just because they share DNA. Amanda and I support whatever decision Iris makes about whether to have contact with Gregory in the future, but we have made clear that any relationship would need to include strict boundaries and probably supervised interaction, at least initially. Iris said she needs more time before she is ready to face her father, if she ever is. We told her there is no timeline and no pressure. Her healing is what matters most. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.